well, New Yorkers, you may have to rename that New York strip steak to New York strip plant-based product, because the mayor wants you to stop eating meat, and he is going to track you to make sure of it. Last month, the mayor announced an initiative called the Greenhouse Gas Inventory. It's a tracking system designed to assign a point value to everything done in New York City. It does not account for crime, like what is the, carbon footprint of robbing a bank or something like that. None of that, only non-illicit activity. The tracking system, though, it blames 20% of New York City's emissions on the consumption of food, although these are by internal calculations. So to combat that, they say they have committed New York City to reducing food consumption emissions by 33%. Now, a major component of this is switching to plant-based foods, but those numbers don't really add up if you look at this chart. The purple here, see, it says, well, that chart here is telling you that food is responsible for about 21.3% of New York's total emissions. But then if you look at the next chart, the purple there is how food emissions break down. And it says that meat is the third from the bottom, the sort of middle purple one, is responsible for 1.80%. So I'm not exactly sure how the math goes if meat only accounts for 1.8% of the 20% of food-related emissions. How will reducing meat hit a 33% reduction?
Don't question math. Don't question their math.
That
Apparently,
doesn't quite work out.
Mayor Adams, he's got his own kind of abacus. He's got his own kind of special New York City abacus.
Well, in fact, these are the numbers that are on par with researcher Bjorn Lundberg. He showed that going vegetarian only cuts your food-related emissions, and a person's food-related emissions are only about 4.3% of their total emissions. Like most of your emissions come from you using your cell phone and pinging the towers and things like that. Very little of it has to do with food. And Bjorn Lundberg estimates that by going vegetarian, a person's overall emissions can only be reduced by 2%. And that tracks with this chart, about 1.8%. So plant-based meals are not going to make a big change in the overall emissions of New York City. In fact, by some calculations, they would be worse because so many plant-based products consist of seed oils. Seed oils is the main component of sunflower oil and canola oil mostly. And these oils are not good for you. They will inevitably increase the healthcare costs of the city eventually. And according to author Mark Sisson in his book on keto living, he presents studies that show that eating these refined oils constrict your arteries for longer than smoking a cigarette because it is a sustained inflammation.
Yeah, like the oils, the seed oils
specifically,
constrict your arteries for like 24 hours, whereas like smoking a cigarette's like 3 or 4 hours.
It's something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And furthermore, these oils are not organic. They require more pesticide use than does agricultural animal farming. So if you're investigating processed oils raised on a steady diet of fertilizer and pesticide versus livestock farming, you're not comparing apples to apples. It's a false equivalency. And some studies do show that the impact on the planet of these oil-based products. Now, I'm not here to promote one diet or another. What I'm here to question is when a politician says we're going plant-based, a lot of times that means more processed. Now, I didn't see anything that said, well, we're just going to get children and people in hospitals to like gnaw on raw lettuce. I doubt that would fly.
They're going to give like the Beyond Meat burgers that have 70 ingredients and they're all highly processed crap.
I mean, this is my assumption because this is how most plant-based diets play out when they are mass produced for more than one person. Of course, I'm sure there are plenty of vegetarians in our chat right now who say, well, I eat whole foods. I, make them for myself. and my family, which is fantastic. But when you make these things in mass produced qualities, most of the time they are processed foods. And now the mayor is saying that he's going to put them in schools and he's going to use them in hospitals. Interestingly enough, there was a town in the UK that did this exact same thing. They decided that the food that they ordered for city events would be all plant-based. And they found out that they wasted something like 40% of it. And so again, this, so we have to ask these hard questions. One is are these food products going to be made with more processed food that require more deforestation and more pesticides? And will it then cause more food waste, which is increases nitrogen emissions, food waste, increasing. Yeah, go ahead.
And that's something you're not going to be able to step out and find a local person making it. So you're going to automatically have a footprint because it's going to have to be done in a factory. Whereas now I can go to a local farmer and get meat, that's not commercial.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want you to have that. They absolutely want with this tracking system to eliminate that. And this is, to me, the first step towards like the social credit score thing, right? So we're gonna track all of this in this city.
We'll show you in a second how they're going to do it. And I just want to show you this emissions chart that shows all of these seed oils and what their impact on the planet is. It's not palm oil, soybean oil, rapeseed oil, sunflower oil. These are all things that, in the way I eat,
they're awful for you.
Should be avoided at all cost.
You want to read a great book? Read The Carnivore Code by Dr. I read it a few months ago. Then you read it. It's the Carnivore.
And anyway,
great. Yeah.
Oh no, Saladino. Paul Saladino.
Yeah, Dr. Paul Saladino.
Well, I think. Again, we're not here to tell you to eat any which way, just to ask questions when a city is saying, oh, yes, plant-based is going to be so much better and so much easier on the planet. A lot of the times that math doesn't work out unless everybody has a rooftop garden and is eating from their own rooftop garden, right? And a lot of times that's just not the way that's executed. And also
I want to know how that one oil hasn't been canceled yet with its name.
Which?
Rapeseed.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, the major problem here is that these products require large industrial farming, huge crops of seeds for these oils. And this will create even more food insecurity, according to Dr. Joseph Merkala, an osteopathic physician. He says industrial agriculture uses 75% of available farmland, yet produces just 30% of the food. Think about that. So we're moving towards this. That's not sustainable. Whereas small biodiverse farms use 25% of land and provide 70% of our diet. So for the mayor to say, we're not in a good place right now with sustainability for food, it's leaving out these calculations of how plant-based food is mass produced. His point is that once living on animals are eliminated and replaced by patented plant-derived alternatives, private companies will control the food supply and therefore control the people. It's hard to argue with that. And he's warning that this processed diet is part of the agenda of those who promote the Great Reset.
Of course.
Now, I'm not saying that. It feels like it. Absolutely.
Well, just look at the Dutch farmers. Take 3,000 farms away from the Dutch farmers, convert all of that farmland so they can't produce any of the livestock anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And turn all of those into apartment buildings because we're going to make you a plant-based society and we're going to control all of that whole system. And
you're going to eat this stuff that's going to make you so sick that you're going to basically be like those people on WALL-E who need to have those floating wheelchairs. Yeah. And who's going to fix that? The biopharmaceutical complex will come in and pump you full of drugs that they'll make money off of. Yes. Okay. That's our extrapolation of worst case scenario, right? Okay. Let's get back to it. We don't even have to worst case. That's already happening. Yeah. It's already happening. They're keeping us sick all right. to make money off of it. Let's talk about what's really happening. So in New York City, how are they going to track this now? For now, it is voluntary. This is called Plant Powered Carbon Challenge. They challenge you to give them your data, basically. Tell volunteer as a business or a home. Tell them about what you eat and your sustainability practices and how you cook what you eat. And they will give you a plan to reduce it, keep tracking you, and their plan will be more plant-based meals. Now, it's worth noting that Eric Adams is a vegan. He has this vegan cookbook called Healthy at Last. He says that this diet helped cure his diabetes, and that may be true. But again, when you look back at the chart about these emissions, they're really aiming at the smallest percentage of emissions for the whole of New York City, leaving the largest emitters alone. Now, in addition to that, another of the New York City commissioners working on this project is Rohit Agarwala. He's one of the founders of Google's Sidewalk Labs, which collects data in order to forge a new standard for what cities have to do. So again, data collection in order to get you to a certain outcome. Again, you can volunteer for this, but how long before it's not voluntary, especially when you recall that the United Nations Global Climate Campaigner, Christiana Figueres, she wants all cities to focus on meatless meals and for meat eaters to be ostracized to meat sections in restaurants so that they don't,
like smoking sections.
Yeah, like smoking sections. Here's her quote about that. How about restaurants in 10 to 15 years start treating carnivores in the same way that smokers are treated? If they want to eat meat, they can do it outside the restaurant. So again, this is the vision for urban living. Let me know what you think about this.
15-minute cities, urban living where they control the entire food supply, and you have a social credit score so they can monitor all of it. If you've gone over your meat allotment for the week or the month, sorry, you're cut off. You have to eat their plant-based weird crap that's highly processed. A lot of people are asking about the book that I mentioned in the chat. They want to make sure they got the right book. This is the book, The Carnivore Code, by Dr. Paul Saladino. He was a raw food vegan who had all sorts of health issues. He's a doctor, and he talked about being a doctor, and he's like, we're a part of this failed process where every day he goes to the hospital.
Yeah. And
all of the people there they're being foisted on with statins, and then just to basically prolong their life through pharmaceuticals. Yeah. He's like, there has to be a better way. Anyway, read the book. It's an eye-opening book. It's a suppressed book.
There is some data about how, you think, well, animals don't want to be, killed and eaten. And he's like, but a lot of these processed vegan meals cause a lot of animals to be killed through deforestation. A lot of mice, a lot of rabbits, a lot of, insects. Like there is a high environmental impact of using these processed plant-based diets. And very few people are doing true comparisons of one-to-one. And again, when someone just says like, oh, plant-based is the new electric car, when you realize, when you dig down into the data, it doesn't always turn out the way that the person using those terms for virtue signaling wants them to.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're all about information here on this show. So, read the book, read your vegan books, read this book, and have a balance of opinions. That's what Natalie and I have both done. We've read vegan books, we've read carnivore books, and you can make your own determination once you decide and figure out what toxins are actually in some of these plants that a lot of people are eating. So it's really important. And then once you also see what the World Economic Forum is trying to do to us and control our entire supply and control everything that you do by eliminating meat, that should be a red flag. When the World Economic Forum is trying to get you to stop eating meat, should set off some alarm bells. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.